It seems unbelievable in today's world that emails can still be spoofed by hackers and scammers. The emails that you receive may look like they're coming from someone that you know, but you can't always trust those emails, even if the address looks correct. Let me show you an example of sending a spoofed email using the address of a well-known brand. This organization receives over $7 billion of income per year, and yet I can easily spoof emails coming from their domain. So on this website, I'm going to send fake emails. I'm going to say from name, and I'll just say something like the boss, email, the boss at, and I'm going to put in their domain to. And in this case, I'll send it to a test address, so test@davidbomble.co, and I'll specify a subject of very important email, must open, or whatever. And in the text, I'll say, this is a spoofed email. And all I need to do now is go through the captures and I'll be able to send this spoofed email. Before I click send, I'll go to my email box. At the moment, it says important email, and that's actually a previously spoofed email that I sent. But let's send this new one with a subject, very important email, must open, and I'll click send. Email has been successfully sent. And there you go. Subject, very important email, must open, from the boss. If I click on that, it says from the boss, and you can see the name is the boss at this well-known organizations.com domain. You can see reply to the boss at wellknowncompany.com, and subject is this is a spoofed email. Now again, this domain is well known. You're going to know this organization if I mention it. Unfortunately, companies are still not securing their email, and email can easily be spoofed. Now you can easily check whether a domain is protected or not by going to EasyDMARC.com and putting in the domain. So I'm going to put in this domain, wellknownorganization.com, and scan it. And it says here, risk assessment is medium. DMARC is enabled, but not fully. SPF is enabled. DKIM is enabled. But I was still able to spoof those emails and receive them in my inbox. Now I'll be discussing what these are in a moment. But DMARC stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. That's not been set up properly in this case. SPF is Sender Policy Framework, and DKIM is Domain Keys Identified Mail. If I look at the details for this company's domain, you'll notice, scrolling down here, that we have a DMARC warning. Your domain has a DMARC record, but there is space for improvement. Look up your DMARC for more information. And here's the problem. Notice P is set to none. We're told that the DMARC record is set to none or quarantine policy, which will not protect against email spoofing and phishing, which I've just shown you. We're told that we should enhance the policy to reject by monitoring legitimate email senders through DMARC aggregate reports for improved security. Now, SPF is valid according to this report, and DKIM is valid according to this report. But notice I was able to send an email.
Scary stuff, scary stuff, scary stuff. Ding!
Now, I think one of the problems with making sure that outbound email is set properly is it's not easy to understand. I have had this problem myself for my domain. So I set up SPF as an example. I thought I'd set up DKIM, but emails could still be spoofed. EasyDMARC has helped me lock my domain down. So if I analyze my domain, davidbomble.com, and scan it, notice I get 10 out of 10. My DMARC is set properly, SPF is set properly, DKIM is set properly. So if I look at the details, notice a DMARC is set to reject. That means that people can't spoof my emails. If P is set to none, that means that the email will be delivered as if it came from a legitimate source, even if it's a spoofed or spam email. Quarantine means that it'll go into your spam folder. Reject means that the email will not be delivered to the recipient. The whole idea here is we want to stop hackers and spammers spoofing emails coming from you or coming from a well-known domain. Now, the problem with these methods is they're not easy to set up. And I've received many reports when I set this up initially, and it was just a mess. It's like not easy to understand, not easy to implement. EasyDMARC makes this process very simple. And I'm going to show you in a moment how to set this up, the full process to protect your domain or protect your company's domain. Now, let's do a full test with this domain that I set up for this video, davidbomble.co, and I'll scan that domain. Notice 0 out of 10. This is a disaster. DMARC hasn't been configured at all. SPF hasn't been configured at all. DKIM hasn't been configured at all. That means emails can easily be spoofed. So let's say my name is David. The email address is david@davidbomble.co to test@davidbomble.co. The subject is going to be important email from David. And I'm going to say important email. And I'm going to say I'm human, complete the captures, and click send. And there you go. Important email from David. I'll open that up and you can see this is to test@davidbomble.co from david@davidbomble.co. Priority is normal, important email. I was able to spoof an email from this domain and send it to someone else in this domain. What that means is that a hacker or scammer could send a phishing email to someone in the organization, making it look like someone else in the organization. And the email was accepted, went straight into the inbox. I really want to thank EasyDMARC for sponsoring this video and making my domains more secure and stopping people from being able to impersonate me and send spam emails or phishing emails to you. So big shout out to EasyDMARC for sponsoring this video, helping me create more free content to hopefully help you change your life, but also for helping me secure my domain. Now in this video, I'm going to show you all the steps to get 10 out of 10 for your domain. I'm going to show you how to enable DMARC properly, SPF properly, and DKIM properly. Now, to make it easier for you, my team and I have created a PDF, which you can download using the link below, that shows you, once again, all the steps on how to set this up. So you can follow along in the video where I show you how to do all of this, or you can download the PDF as a reference. This is a comprehensive guide to making sure that you get 10 out of 10 for your domain. To stop spammers from using your domain, to stop phishing attacks against people in your organization, as an example, I'm going to show you all the steps in this video. Now let's start with DMARC, because I'm going to use EasyDMARC to secure my domain. So what is DMARC? It stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. We're not going to worry about the name. We're simply going to refer to it as DMARC. It's an email authentication protocol designed to protect email senders and recipients from domain spoofing, as I've demonstrated. Domain spoofing is a technique used by cyber criminals or scammers to send fraudulent emails that appear to come from a legitimate domain. I was once again using a domain, spoofing that domain, and this is an organization that receives billions of dollars in income per year. DMARC enables domain owners to specify policies on how to handle suspicious emails, such as rejecting them, quarantining them, and monitoring them. So in my example with this well-known organization, they set it to none, which allowed them to get some reports, basically a bunch of really difficult to read emails. EasyDMARC makes that a lot easier to understand, but it didn't stop spam emails from being sent or spoofed emails from being sent. What we want to try and do is move from monitoring or none, so P equals none, to quarantining the email, and most important, rejecting the email so that people don't receive these scam emails or phishing emails. So what DMARC does is it verifies the sender identity the recipient sees and makes sure that that matches the identity that's shown to the receiving server. We're going to reject unauthorized senders as an example. Now this works in conjunction with SPF or Sender Policy Framework and DKIM, Domain Keys Identified Mail, to authenticate emails and improve overall email security. I showed you how simple it was to spoof emails. It's really a problem. Most attacks in today's world start with phishing emails. So I've logged into EasyDMARC. Under all domains, I have various domains here. And as you can see, various domains have been configured. davidbomble.com is set to reject as a policy. So is davidbomble.club, and so is cciepython.com. So what I'm going to do is add a new domain. And the domain that I'm adding is davidbomble.co. And I'm going to click add. Remember, this domain has a high risk assessment level at the moment. It's a nightmare.
Scary stuff, scary stuff, scary stuff. Ding!
This domain is not protected, and emails can be easily spoofed from this domain. Okay, so what's really nice here is it immediately picks up that this domain is registered on Bluehost. So we're told, go to Bluehost, navigate to the DNS record section, and create a CNAME record with this information. That's the more difficult way of doing it. You can allow EasyDMARC to manage your domain directly. However, I prefer to manage the DNS records manually. So on Bluehost, I'm going to manually configure this information. Now, the domain register that you use may have a different way of doing this. I'm simply using Bluehost in this example to show you how to set this up. But have a look at the documentation for your domain registrar to see how you can configure this. So I'm going to go to the settings for a domain, and I'm going to go to advanced, and I'm going to scroll down and go to cPanel. And in cPanel, I'm going to scroll down to Zone Editor. You need to find the area in your registrar where you can edit records such as the CNAME record or text records for your DNS entries. You basically need to go to the area in your registrar where you can manage DNS zones. We're basically going to manage CNAME records and other entries for this domain. So back in EasyDMARC, we're told that we need to go to the DNS record section and create a CNAME record with this information. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to click on CNAME, specify that information, and the CNAME information that I'm going to copy is the following. So I'm going to select that and click Add CNAME Record. Okay, so we're told that that's been successfully added. So if I click on Manage as an example, I can see a whole bunch of information for this domain. And if I search for DMARC, I can see that that information has been added. Type is CNAME, TTL is this, record is this. Now, this may take a while to propagate, but I'm going to click Verify now, and hopefully it's propagated already. Unfortunately, it hasn't. So notice we're told, make sure you have published the above CNAME record in your domain DNS. And note, DNS propagation may take up to several hours. So I'm going to click Verify again. In my tests, it's normally taken a few minutes. So after a while, I'll click Verify. Hopefully it works now. And there you go. Your DMARC record has been successfully verified. So that's great. And we're told once again that this has been successfully added and verified. So if I go back to all domains, so there's my domain. And if I scroll to the right now, notice DMARC is valid now. So if I click on DMARC and I check DMARC, notice record status is valid. EasyDMARC reporting is active, so I can see reports rather than just a bunch of random emails. So that's a lot better. So as an example here, you can see volume distribution by DMARC compliance. Was it compliant, non-compliant, or was it a threat or unknown? So something stands out right away here. You can see Russian domains here as threats. So if I look at the volume distribution, we can see an email in the US, there's some in Germany, and then we've got Russia. So if I go to aggregate maps as an example, I can see information about compliant emails, non-compliant, threat, and forwarded. So I'm definitely getting people trying to use my domain to send emails. Over the last 90 days as an example, you can see 249 threats or unknown emails were sent. The compliant location is shown here. Top non-compliant locations, as you can see, Russia is the top threat. Unknown locations, again, Russia. So this kind of information is very easy to view through EasyDMARC. But let me tell you, it's a nightmare if you don't have this. I remember receiving the XML files, and you can't make heads or tail of what that information says. It's just a whole bunch of emails. And in the end, I just archived those emails because it didn't really help me. This visually shows you what's going on, makes it really, really easy to see compliant, non-compliant emails. And you can see the volume, etc. So you can change your graph type to see information. You can see sending source. You can see, as an example, which domains where malicious emails are coming from. In my example, it's Russia. So you need to monitor your reports and then identify which sources are legitimate and which ones are not. Setting up DMARC is a journey that takes time. So in a YouTube video, we're obviously doing it very quickly so that you can see all the steps. But you in the real world are going to spend some time doing this. I mean, you don't want your emails blocked. So emails sent to customers, you don't want that dropped or blocked. You want your emails to be delivered. So make sure that you look at your compliance, make sure that you monitor your reports and see what's going on. So again, the DMARC reports are human readable. Normal DMARC comes in XML report files. I mean, as it says here, it's not human readable. It's so difficult to understand the XML data that's sent to you. So huge advantage of EasyDMARC is it takes that information and allows you to see through a dashboard the big picture of what's going on. So much easier to understand the information rather than, trying to make heads or tail of the XML files. So, I mean, this looks really pretty. But if I go to aggregate reports by compliance, pretty graphs here. We can see threat unknown information here. So we can see sources, a lot of Russian IP addresses as an example. So let's have a look at a compliant example. So we've got the email server and IP address. And if I scroll to the right, we can see the reporter. In this case, it's google.com. And I can view the XML data. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that's not very easy to read and understand necessarily. If you set this up without EasyDMARC, what's going to happen, unless you've got a better system, is you're just going to get emails all the time with this kind of information. Not easy to understand. If we look at threat unknown, we can see the XML here. And again, I mean, that's not necessarily very easy to understand. I mean, from a time point of view, and a management point of view, you would have to do something with this data and show it nicely, or use the reports available on EasyDMARC, which really make this easy to understand. Now, just to highlight some important information, the most important part of the reports are the classification parts of the reports, which have sections for compliant, non-compliant, threat unknown, and forwarded. And the most important section there is the non-compliant tab. This may be legitimate sources, and you want to have those emails delivered if it's legitimate. So you need to update the SPF and DKIM records to pass the compliance check. EasyDMARC, once again, has a step-by-step instruction on how to configure any source you find that is legitimate and found in this tab. So in my example, going to non-compliant, I see AWS. That doesn't look right. Russia doesn't look right. But I've got a one-on-one source here that is probably correct, but you can see some of the addresses have been blacklisted. So as an example, we can see that this IP address is blacklisted in 3 lists, and we can see the lists that have blacklisted this IP address. Again, this is in Russia. So I'd have to go and look at what is legitimate and what is not legitimate and see what's going on. So as an example, these 2 are delivered to spam and other emails haven't been delivered. So the DMARC SPF are failing here. But notice again, we can see delivered to spam 40%, not delivered 60% about. We can see for various sending sources what was delivered to spam and what was not delivered. And we could go and investigate that to see what's going on. As you can see here, SPF is not configured, DKIM is not configured. So we need to investigate this and then decide if we need to fix something or not. In this case, this is a legitimate email that had emails dropped or blocked. So we'd have to go and find out what is going on here and fix that. Again, the problem here is non-compliant may be legitimate emails that are not being delivered. That means that people who are sending emails using your domain are having their emails rejected, sent to spam as an example, or blocked. So they're not being delivered. And that could obviously cause problems from a business point of view. If someone in your business is sending sales emails or talking to a very important customer and those emails are not delivered, that is a problem. So this is the issue with security, right? You could put a really hardcore amount of security on your domain or on your systems, which means your systems are secure. But from a business point of view, that could negatively affect cash flow or your sales, etc. So you need to investigate this and make sure that emails that should be sent are actually sent and delivered appropriately. Okay, so once you've moved all the compliant sources from the non-compliant tab to the compliant tab, then you can enforce the policy and move to quarantine. Then you're going to continue watching this and monitoring it, and then you set to reject. So don't just go from none to reject immediately like I've demonstrated in this video. You're going to want to do some monitoring first, quarantine, then reject. So what I'm going to do is go to Manage Solutions, Manage DMARC, and rather than setting it to none, I'm going to set it to reject. Now, just a warning, you may not want to do that immediately. You may want to monitor your domain for a period of time first to check what's happening on the domain. Okay, so back on all domains, scroll to the right. We want to look at SPF. It's showing an error at the moment. So again, if I check SPF, notice record is invalid, lookup count is 15 out of 10, 5 email senders. This is not good. So EasyDMARC once again makes this a lot easier and trying to compress this down to less than 10. Notice we told you, DNS lookup count in your SPF record, 15 exceeds the maximum limit of 10. This will result in a perm error and SPF authentication failure. Please use our Easy SPF tool to optimize your SPF record and reduce the DNS lookup count. We had a massive problem when we were trying to set this up ourselves. Much easier, once again, to use EasyDMARC than for us to try and manually go and sort out the SPF lookup tree. It's got 15 lookups here. Maximum allowed is 10. So notice we've got an Easy SPF option. But before I go any further, let's talk just very quickly about SPF. So SPF, or Sender Policy Framework, is used to authenticate the sender of an email by verifying that the email is sent from an authorized server, not just some random server like I demonstrated. It ensures that the sending mail server is authorized to originate mail from the email sender's domain. I was sending emails from a well-known domain, pretending to be them, and also from davidbomble.co. So SPF helps prevent email spoofing by specifying a list of IP addresses that are authorized to send emails on behalf of a domain, which is published in the domain's DNS as an SPF record. So notice here we have a list of IP addresses, and here we can see them. But the problem is, once again, is that there are 15 lookups. 10 is the maximum allowed. So we have a problem at the moment. If we try and do this manually, we've got to somehow compress this. So what I'm going to do again is go to Easy SPF and click Activate. We're told that the SPF parts have been successfully saved. To make the changes live, update your DNS as outlined in the activation guide. So I'm going to click OK here. And notice again, you can let EasyDMARC automate this process for you. I'm going to do this manually and log into Bluehost and navigate to the DNS record. In this example, I'm going to search for the SPF record. If it doesn't exist, I'll need to create it. But in my example, it does exist, and I'll just update the record with the values EasyDMARC gave me. I'm going to copy this value and paste that in there and click Save. And as you can see there, the EasyDMARC entry has been added. So back in EasyDMARC, I'll click Verify. Now we're told that we need to make sure that this entry is added, and it may take a while to propagate. I'm being too hasty here. You may need to wait a few minutes or a few hours, as they tell us here, for the DNS propagation to take place. I'll click Verify again, and there you go, propagation has taken place, and we're told that Easy SPF is activated for my domain, and I'll click Done. So, under Domains, under davidbombal.co, I'll scroll to the right, and as you can see here, DMARC is valid, SPF is valid. We haven't done DKIM yet. So what is DKIM? So DKIM, once again, is Domain Keys Identified Mail. It's an email authentication method that uses digital signatures based on public key cryptography to verify that an email was indeed sent from the domain it claims to be from. Now, you don't have to know this detail, but in public key cryptography, you create what's called a private key, and then a public key is derived from the private key. A private key is private. You keep it to yourself, hence the name private key. So you don't share that with anyone, but something signed with a private key can only be decrypted with the relevant public key that was derived from the private key. So as an example, I would have a private key for myself. You would have a private key for yourself. We'd both create that independently. So I'd create my own private key. I'd derive my public key from my private key. If you wanted to send something to me that only I could decrypt, you would encrypt it with my public key. Public meaning that it's shared with everyone. So I would give you my public key. You wanted to share something with me, you would encrypt it with my public key, and only my private key can decrypt that message. Same if I want to send something to you that only you can read, I would encrypt it with your public key, and only your private key can decrypt it. But for verification methods, rather than encrypting, we can do the following. If I give you my public key and I sign something with my private key, only my public key can decrypt what I've signed with my private key. But that doesn't give us confidentiality. What that gives us is non-repudiation, which basically means I can't deny that I sent it. If I send something to you that's signed with my private key, only my public key can decrypt it. Which means that if you can decrypt something that I've signed with my private key, you know that it came from me. It's basically a digital signature. Something signed with my private key can only be decrypted with my public key. I share my public key with you and everyone else. When I sign something with my private key, you know that it came from me because I'm the only person that has my private key. So the domain owner generates a public-private key pair and stores the public key in a DNS record associated with the domain. That means that you and everyone else can get my public key. When an email is received, the recipient's server uses the public key to verify the DKIM signature, ensuring the email's authenticity and integrity. Once again, my public key is shared with everyone, part of the DNS record. So you can get my public key. When I sign something with my private key, only I have that private key, no one else. You know that that message came from me because if you can decrypt it with my public key, you know it matches my private key, and I'm the only person that has the private key. My public key, once again, is derived from my private key. I give you my public key. I sign it with my private key. You have my public key. If you can decrypt the message, you know it came from me. It's basically a digital signature. Anything signed with my private key originated from me and me only. Now, in this example, we're using a shared server. But if davidbombal.co was on a dedicated server, we would need to do the following to set the DKIM record. On a shared server, you need to generate the public key and publish it in your DNS. Okay, so davidbombal.co. Go to the right-hand side here. We can see that no record exists for DKIM. So I'll select that. And let's do a check for my domain. Nothing has been set up at the moment. So I'm going to select DKIM generator, and I'm going to specify a selector such as S1. I'll leave everything else at the default. You could make the key stronger. Probably want to do that if you're more security conscious, but I'm going to leave it at the default and click generate. And notice a selector has been created. If I scroll down here and I'm going to blur this, you can see my private key and my public key. So the public key was derived from the private key. My private key must be kept secret, as anyone with access to it can stamp tokens pretending to be you. That's the important piece. We're going to share the public key. So this information here matches the public key. I can share that with anyone and everyone, but I keep my private key to myself. If my private key gets leaked, it means that other people can impersonate me. Public key cryptography is used everywhere. It's used in encryption, in VPNs, and also here with email. Okay, so previously for the domain, DKIM was invalid. So I'll go back to EasyDMARC.com, do a search for my domain, do a scan of my domain, davidbombal.co. So click scan domain. DKIM is still not propagated yet. Might have to wait a while. So at the moment, it's still showing as invalid. Okay, so I'll scan for the domain. So scan now, and there we go. Risk assessment level is low. We've got a 10 out of 10 score. Outstanding result. Everything looks good now. SPF is valid. There are entries. DMARC is valid. There are entries. DKIM is valid. There's our public key. Now, the big question is always, okay, so I've done all of the security. Will emails still work? There's no point having all the security and then it breaks our email system. So what I'll do is I'll send an email to Gmail using test@davidbombal.co. So I'll send this to a Gmail account. So test from davidbombal.co, test email after security enabled, something like that. Okay, so let's see if that works. So I'll send the email. So it says message successfully sent, so that's good. And on my phone, notice I have an email here, test from davidbombal.co, and it was sent to my Gmail account. So emails can successfully be sent if I reply to that and say something like received and reply. That's being sent now. There you go. Test from davidbombal.co, from David Bombal, sent today, and you can see it says received. So after I enabled all of the security, I've been able to protect my domain and I haven't broken things. Emails can still be sent from davidbombal.co to, for instance, a Gmail account, and replies are received back. We've now got a score of 10 out of 10. I'm really happy with that. If I go to all domains and look at davidbombal.co, policies reject, things are looking good. The important thing is if I look at my score, I've got 10 out of 10. Now you can enable more options here. You can secure email coming in, as well as enabling BME, which I'll talk about in a separate video. What I wanted to show you here is how to get 10 out of 10 and get your email security to a point where it's much more secure. Very important that you enable SPF, DMARC, and DKIM on your domains. And then if you want to make your domain more secure, you can enable BME and some other options, which I'll talk about later. So let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about BME and MTA STS as an example. I'm planning to cover those in a separate video, but let me know your thoughts. I really want to thank EasyDMARC once again for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel, but most importantly, securing my email, securing my domain. This was a nightmare for me to try and set up manually. All the reporting was a joke, really. I was just getting a bunch of emails. Didn't really help me. Their reporting system makes it so much easier to see what's going on, and also makes it really easy to make sure that this is enabled. The steps to set this up are actually very easy. The hardest part is trying to understand the terminology. But hopefully I've helped you understand those terms and shown you how easy it is to set this up using EasyDMARC rather than trying to do it manually. The choice, however, is yours. You could set it up manually if you prefer, but personally, I find it a lot of hassle, much easier to use EasyDMARC. I'm David Bombal. I want to wish you all the very best.